Hello, my name's Nick Beach, and today within the strategic planning presentations we're going to look at resource and risk. Now, risk is an interesting area to look into. Often organisations oversee or risk as in don't observe it because they assume things will occur, and often that can have a major consequence to an organisation. It is sometimes something that is pushed to the back of an organisation's strategic planning process, which is often the reason why the organisation fails. So risk is a highly important thing. Like a game of cards, an organisation's playing a game. It's got to have an understanding of what its competitors are playing, what their hands are, and understand what capabilities it has, what hand of cards that it has, and whether that can beat, match, or lose against various players. There have been many cases where companies have naively gone head-to-head against a big corporate giant, only to be wiped out because they didn't have sufficient funds to support their initiative. I've seen cases whereby organisations destabilise elements of the competition by putting in large price cuts, which takes the market away from a new entrant into a market. So you've got to be able to understand what the risks are to your organisation, be that financial risk or reputational risk, and how the environment plays around that. Key outcomes for today. Identify the impact of risk and how to manage it and its impact and the impact of it. In other words, what are the risks, how you can minimise those risks, and if you don't minimise it, what's the risk you take? Secondly, identify the importance of matching resources to capability. In other words, can you, with the resource base you have, gain strategic leverage by enhancing your capability? Risk and hazards is an interesting debate, or interesting two words to look at. Risk is what you are actually putting forward as losing. Hazard is the potential of it occurring. So a hazard is something that could happen to you, and a risk is the magnitude of the exposure you have to that hazard occurring. So what you try to do when you are managing your risk is to reduce the potentials that hazards could have an effect on your organisation. So you're minimising one by putting in management tools and processes to manage the risk environment that you are operating in. The key for this, or the key issue that you've got to be concerned about, particularly at boardroom level, is that you are adopting the appropriate strategy that accommodates within the resource base that you have and in the environment that you are operating in, appropriate risk strategies to minimise the risk to your organisation. In other words, you are not making wild decisions unfounded on logic and exposing the organisation to potential failures. Now that can be on multiple levels. That's not just the resource base. It could be that you could destroy your brand in one country because you are not taking consideration of the partners that you are working with in another. So it's far more than just a physical series of risks. Risk management. Risk management is really the art of reducing risk. You're never ever going to remove risk completely from your organisation's portfolio of opportunities that could go wrong. But you can be aware of what risk is and devise strategies for dealing with that risk. In other words, you minimise the hazards that are around you, or accommodate the hazards that are around you, or just don't engage in an environment that has those sort of hazards. The issue is that you make the strategic decision to do that and don't just wander into catastrophes time and time again. Only that way you can be sure of having a long-term plan that was actually going to work. In other words, by taking accommodation of risk, understanding what risk is within the environment you're operating in, you are aware of how that's going to impact on you, not just on the immediate, but in the long term as well. It shouldn't be just seen as an issue with regards to an accident. It could also be an accident which could injure people or damage resources. But it could also have issues like reputational damage. It could also have a major impact on how stakeholders see you. And there's been a number of major cases across the globe where companies' brands, operations in one area has affected the brand positioning in another environment because of operating in those other areas. That moves us on to another area, business capability. Business capability, to a degree, is your unique series of assets. It's the way you do business, the way you engage with your customers. It's the know-how and the know-what. You know how to do it, but more importantly, you know when to do it, where to do it, and how often to do it. So it's engaging with your clients, knowing who you're engaging with, know how those skills the skill sets you've got, and employing those skill sets to the optimum result. It could be looking at your business processes. It could be looking at the way you do the structures of your organisation. It could be that you analyse the market in a very effective way, and you know where to jump when your competitors don't. It is those capabilities of the strategic thinking of your organisation and the implementation throughout the organisation that could give you the competitive advantage to win. This isn't stuff that just appears. You must have something that not only is not by chance, but is systemised. So you try to build skill into your organisation, awareness into your organisation that gives you the capability to make effective decisions, that you know what your unique selling position is and how you can exploit that to the optimum. So business capability is almost a conscious awareness of what's going on in the environment and how you can operate to optimum within that environment. In other words, skill is a tacit form of knowledge, social relations that are embedded in a firm, routines, managerial process, forms of communication and culture. You could have two virtually identical organisations. One will thrive in the same environment, the other will perish because of the skills that those individuals bring to that organisation. It could be as simple as the will to win. The people on the ground care about their customers. It could be that the management actually care about the employees and try and help them to achieve their goals. It could be just an awareness that the managing director will come down and speak to the people on the ground. And by doing that, motivate them to actually want to achieve more. So this business capability is a lot more than just financial assets. It is often the element that makes the difference in an organisation. It can be seen as special types of resources. And that can improve the improve the productivity of the organisation. And it can really be a cluster of capabilities that you bring together. So it's understanding what elements within your organisation work and how by combining them in an effective way can make them work better. Porter's value chain is one good tool that can be used to analyse the capabilities within your organisation. Look at your value chain, see how that works, and see how each element can not only be excellent in its own right, but can actually augment other elements of the value chain and the value process that goes through it. The resource base for this? Wide in many ways. Knowledge, experience. People get better at things if they do them more often. One organisation improved its customer care by just not losing staff. Because it didn't have to continually retrain staff every 6 months and retain them for 5 and 10 years, they got better and better and better at what they did. What was more important, they also got more and more pride in what they were doing. So they not only were better at it, but wanted to be even better at it. So this business capability can be very much a humanistic approach, driving belief within the organisation and minimising cost as it goes along. So it's got a wide range of assets that you can use, not just the humans, but there's also the facilities, making an environment that people want to work within can also help with that. In summary, what we've just looked at. Firstly, risk. Risk is damaging. If an organisation doesn't really consider it in a strategic sense, then it exposes its people, its management team, and the entire organisation to dramatic risk which could have a major impact on the existence of the organisation and the credibility of that organisation and its products that's servicing the customer's needs. Capability assessment is basically the ability to look at your organisation, look at what capabilities sit within the organisation. In other words, you develop competencies, merge them together, and they can give you a unique position in the market. So that gives you a complete set of new competencies and new capabilities from those competencies because you combine them together. Now, the key issue is that resources can't always be as easy to access. They can almost be sacred. So you have to protect them in many ways. So therefore, knowing what you are good at and using what you are good at to attract the market that you know want those services is the key issue to strategy. In other words, you make what the customer wants and you service it in the way the customer wants to be serviced. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.